Hey, welcome back to episode 8 of the Model Train Outsider. I'm Anthony Dodge.
And I'm the ghost of Christmas past.
Oh, no, you aren't.
Yes, I am.
You are not.
I am so. You said so yourself in the very first video. You said, I was you from Christmas of 2015.
I also told you that you were just a bad jump edit of me pretending to be me from 2015.
So you're saying I'm not real?
You're just a simple, silly representation of that idealistic and dreamer form of me, that little artist part of me that loves to get into things, get so enthusiastic, get so full of vim and vigor to do something, but doesn't always plan ahead, doesn't always think about the consequences of even the littlest actions.
So I'm just you now, pretending to be you from the year 2015.
Yep.
And all I am is some sort of symbolic representation of an inner conflict you are dealing with for having gotten into this hobby later in life, passionate and enthusiastic, without having looked forward to all the potential problems you might have getting into this hobby, right?
That sums it up quite nicely.
So you're filming yourself talking to yourself.
Yeah?
You're crazier than I thought.
Now that's enough out of you.
Oh? What are you going to do?
I told you, I can make you disappear just like that.
Oh, so now you're Thanos from the Avengers movies.
I'm telling you.
If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you could ever imagine.
That's it.
Hey!
Peace. Finally. In today's episode, what I want to talk to you about is...
I told you.
What?
You can't get rid of me.
On.
I shall always be here.
I just want to do the show.
I am that voice inside your head.
Oh, for goodness sakes.
Video or not.
If I bring you back, will you just stop?
I will always be here.
Use the Force, Luke.
What?
Simba, you have forgotten.
What the heck?
I'm sorry. The ethereal plane is crowded up here.
Oh, man. There.
That's better. Got him again. So, what's the topic today?
Well, it is a topic straight from you. Since we decided we were going to recreate the city of Delmenhorst, today's topic is what problems you might face when you're trying to 100% create a living reality. In this case, a section of the city of Delmenhorst as it is today.
Oh, good. I'll start.
What?
In 2003, as I've mentioned before, I started an exchange program with this town in Germany called Delmenhorst. It's near Bremen in the northwest part of Germany. That's where I first experienced the train system, and that's where, over a couple of years, I fell in love with the German train system. For whatever flaws people want to say it might have, it's amazing, so easy to travel. So, 14 years of an exchange program, I fall in love with the city of Delmenhorst because I'm living there almost a month each year. And I've fallen in love with the German train system, so much so that I bought a model train set, decided it was too nice for the classroom, kept it at home, really thought it was cool, built a table to run it on, and then decided I wanted to do more and do more and do more. But one thing from the very beginning I wanted to do was I was going to build the city of Delmenhorst. Not the entire city, of course, but the train station and some of the important places around it. But there's a lot to learn about customizing, about custom building a city, especially when model companies don't make the buildings you want. So, the first thing I did, just not as a joke, but out of a sense of love and appreciation for a good friend of mine in Delmenhorst, was I built this. This is my friend Piotr's currywurst stand in Delmenhorst. He's one of the first shop owners I got to know on a consistent basis when I started the exchange program. He was originally in the heart of downtown, and then about 4 or 5 years into the exchange program, he moved to another location. And so I decided to make his currywurst stand. I just grabbed some scrap pieces of plastic and stuff I had laying around. I'd already built a few buildings, gone to a garage sale, bought some buildings, found some other clearance things on eBay. So I had a bunch of buildings and scrap parts laying around, and I decided to make his currywurst stand. So here is the actual currywurst stand, and here is a picture of it with me and Piotr. And in the foreground, you can see the model I made of it. This was my first custom-built building in several years, since I had stopped diorama building and model wargaming stuff. I was very pleased with it. But it was just a start. If I'm going to make Delmenhorst, it's a model train hobby that I'm in love with, I've got to build the Delmenhorst station. And that would be the reason why 3 years later, he still hasn't built the city of Delmenhorst, because he finally just got done building the station.
All right. So, anyhow, a little bit of what I want to briefly talk about in this episode is when you're going to design a layout, there are a couple of things to think about. Number one, how detailed do you want your layout? If you just want to set up a table, run some track, and then just scatter some trees and some buildings here and there just to create something, that's awesome. Have fun with the trains, because that's what it's about. You want to see the trains running. But most model railway people want to create some level of reality, some level of detail in their layout. And so you have two choices. You either create an idealistic view, or you're doing a full recreation. What's the difference? Well, simply, if you're doing a idealistic layout, what you're doing is you're picking a time and an era, some combination of the two, where you don't necessarily want to completely recreate a full photographic reality. You're trying to create a sense of that world. So maybe you want pastoral England in the 1930s, or you want Eastern Germany before the fall of communism. And so you're not necessarily trying to recreate precise and exact places. You're just trying to sell an idea. Maybe something along the Rhine River or something along the Thames in England. You just want to give an idea. So you kind of look at the terrain. What kind of terrain are you doing? What scenery do you want? You're not trying to recreate a specific village or a specific train station. You're just trying to create a sense of what that world was at the time of your layout. The other option you go for is the full recreation, which is you want to recreate a specific time and place. For example, maybe you want to recreate Liverpool station in 1957, and so you're going to look for the exact type of cars, and also you're going to recreate that Liverpool station as it looked exactly on some date in 1957, and you are going to go into massive detail. Now, doing the idealistic is probably somewhat easier. You still got to research your terrain, and you're going to put a lot of work into it, but you can create your vision, your ideal of that time and place, and you can even create scenes like, hey, part of my layout is going to be the plains of northern Germany, the other part of my layout is going to be the Alps. And you're just not trying to recreate a specific mountain or town, you're just trying to recreate a sense of those places. When you're doing the 100% recreation, when you're doing the actual recreation, as I said, like the Liverpool station in 1957, you've got more work, because now you have to completely recreate a specific place at a specific time. And the people who really get into this, they custom build everything. They use photographs, you can Google, use the internet, whatever, old photographs, family photographs, whatever. And they're going to recreate everything down to the color of bricks in a wall. The street signs and the street lights are going to be exactly the way they looked. And that's a lot harder work, because you have to customize, and you have to customize everything. And that's what I want to just briefly end today on when you're talking about customization, because I'm not a how-to guy. I can show you what I've done. Eventually I'll show you what I'm going to do, but there are way too many better people out there to do customizations. For example, 2015 me showed you the little curryver stand of my friend Piotr in the city of Delmenhorst. That was my sort of jump start to make sure I really was going to do this. It was to get my hands back to working in small plastic in time. Everything in there was completely custom. There was no pieces. Nobody made a curryver stand that I converted. I bought some plastic at a hobby store and some pieces of wood at a hobby store and various polycarbonate sheets, and I just cut them down, measured everything, and built it as close to scale as I could. And that's one of the two major issues of customizing that you will face. Scale. Now, even though, for example, with me, HO scale is 187 or 00 scale is 176, when you're customizing buildings and places, you can't usually do them 100% to scale. A house, a barn, something like that, maybe you can do them at 187 scale. But for example, to do my Delmenhorst train station, and here's a picture of the real thing, and then here's some pictures of my version of it. Well, here's the thing. I can go to Google Earth, and using their measurement stick, I can get the length, the width, even to a degree the height. I can get the dimensions. But the Delmenhorst train station, the shortest platform is 441 feet long from end to end. In 187 scale, to do a 100% recreation of that station, that is 6 feet, well, 5.5 feet, just for that one platform. The other platform is 300 feet longer. That makes it, in scale, almost 9 feet long. So if I'm just going to take up half of my table to do the two platforms to 100% scale, I don't have room. Very few people have room. You have to compress. You have to compress size. Most modelers will use a scale like an HO scale, which is what I use. If the scale is 1 to 87, most people will model their buildings at 1 to 95, 1 to 100, usually in width. They'll try to keep the depth the same, but the length or the width they will compress. Also, for example, my Delmenhorst station, I'm not going to do an 8-foot long platform. I'm going to cut out the extended parts of it. I'm going to shorten it. I'm going to compress it. Things that are in real life are 20 feet apart, I'm going to make them in scale 15 feet apart, 12 feet apart, because you just can't completely recreate a 100% scale reproduction of most of these places. If I wanted to do even the area in front of the Delmenhorst train station at full scale, my table has to be 11, 12 foot wide. It's 8 foot wide. I have to compress. I'm going to eliminate certain buildings. I'm just going to want to highlight main buildings that everybody would recognize. There's 3 or 4 blocks. I'm going to do 2 blocks. and I'm just going to compress, because you can't do it 100% to scale when you are trying to recreate a specific place. Obviously, a lot of the people I watch have amazing, beautiful things at home, but usually you can't get the whole thing in. If you want to recreate Newcastle Station or Berlin Main Train Station, that's your entire basement. You can't recreate it and still have a legitimate train run. That's why some of the people who do full recreations only do dioramas, where it's 8 or 10 foot long and they just have a train that shunts back and forth and maybe has a couple of sidelines. That's all they're doing, because they prefer to have that one completely realistic, down to the last detail bit. The Liverpool station one, that's a big layout, but they recreated one station and they are not worried about the train running off into the country and getting the countryside view. They wanted to recreate Liverpool station and that part of the city of Liverpool. It's beautiful. I don't have a link to it here. Google it up if you're into it, because those guys are pros. They really did something else. All right, so that's one issue when you're doing a custom build. The second thing is, when you're doing a custom, they don't make models for the buildings you want. You have to custom build them. There's two ways you can do that. You kit bash, which is you buy a bunch of different model boxes, and I'm going to post a little bit of video or pictures here and showing you my little collection. And you just steal what parts. You're like, hey, this part in this box works, and then this part from this model works, and if I stick those 3 pieces, 4 pieces, 5 pieces together, I can create this. That can be expensive when you're buying $20 model here, $25, and you're only taking 3 or 4 parts. If you have the skill, and you, I don't, you can go and buy sheets of balsa wood, basswood, which is a little stronger than balsa wood, a little bit more expensive as well, but thin basswood is much sturdier than thin balsa, or birch. Again, you're going to pay a heftier price, but you can buy sheets of this at any hobby store, any modeling store, and you set your dimensions. How are you going to compress it? What are you going to do? Again, get the basic sizes somehow. Like I said, you can even use Google Earth. Get those basic sizes, compress it however way you're going to, and then just draw up a design. Hand draw it, graph paper, hand draw it out, make your walls, cut them off, make a template, cut them on your sheets of plywood or plastic or foam board or cardboard, whatever you're going to use as your media for construction, and put it together yourself. But you're going to do a lot more work. That's one of the issues I had building my Delmenhorst train station, is everything had to be custom. Because even if there were pieces that were similar to what I needed for my station in a model kit, they weren't the scale I needed. Because I really tried to make the central part of my Delmenhorst train station, I think I wound up doing it 1:90 scale, just the main part. The whole thing I did at about a 1:110 scale. But for 1:187 scale, or close to it, I did the main part that passengers come in and out of. I did that almost to true scale because I wanted it true to scale. For a little compression, I think I bumped it up to 1/90, maybe 1:92. But again, every single one of those pieces I had to custom cut out of plastic or various other materials that I picked up at a hobby store. It's tedious. It's why it took me 3 months to get to the point where I'm at. Some of it is, hey, I've got a job. I can't always come down here and work. And sometimes when I do have the time, I'm not feeling great. And because my eyesight isn't what it used to be, and worse, arthritis. These fingers aren't as dexterous as they used to be. It's hard for me to stay working on tedious little pieces that are this big, and I've got to cut 150 of them to lay across. And so, yeah, you work when you can, but it's where I'm happy at. you got to be happy with what you're doing. Don't work on it if you're not in the mood. You don't have to have it done tomorrow. But I wanted to do my Delmenhorst station as realistically as possible. And so you can look at some of the pictures as they're posted here, the reality and my custom version of it. And the Delmenhorst station was tough because not only is it a train station I'm trying to model 100% precise, but it's a station where the tracks actually go over the station. So I have to account for weight, support, the pressure of the tracks going over. How was I going to get the lighting in? How am I going to do all these things? And that's just one station. I've got dozens of buildings I have to customize. Now, it took me 2.5 years of starting, quitting, gutting the whole thing, starting all over, because I was never happy with it until I got to a point where I started all over in July and finally came up with the plan that felt good, and it worked. I'm still not done with it. I've got to get it into place. I've got to put the track on top of it. I've got to start laying the ballast. I've got a friend working on the canopies over the stations because I want them 100% accurate. That's me being picky. I don't have a 3D graphic printer. Everything I do, I'm using my razor knives, I'm using my tools, and I'm using my birchwood, balsawood, and basswood, and polycarb plastic sheets, really thin, that I pick up at the hobby store. And I can spend hours drawing, measuring, and starting to cut, and you make one, the blade jumps. You make one little mistake, and that whole piece is guttered, and you gotta do it all over again. That's why when you see somebody who has custom built something where they made their layout, you mock or laugh at their hobby. That's just stupid. The work and the time they put into that. That's why I laugh at the people online who complain when one of their favorite people doesn't put a video out right away. It's like, do you know how much work it takes to just do the work, much less, oh yeah, I'm going to film it, I got to time lapse it, I got to edit it, I got to post it. It's, they have other lives. You got to understand, especially if you're going to customize, go at your pace, do what you can do. You'll be happier. The final bit, after that rant, the final bit when you're trying to customize is that you can't always make a perfect replica. So let me just give you one example of sometimes you have to do what I call sell the idea. This is an actual key building as part of my Delmenhorst layout display. It's on the corner of Bahnhofstrasse, which is the street that leads to the train station. And it's one of the buildings, one of the key intersections that will be in my city layout when I start laying it out. And you'll notice it's got a curved wall. It's a very rounded, nice 90-degree building with a curve. I could, if I had all the proper tools, but I don't have a 3D cutter, I don't have a laser printer. Okay, those can be very expensive machines, and the ones that would be in my price range aren't going to do what I want them to do anyhow. But this is a key building. I looked for models. I bought a couple of models that had the rounded. They weren't quite right. If you look at the building, you can see that the third level is actually pushed back in a bit. Okay, I bought a couple of models. I did this 3 or 4 times to customize this building, and they never came out right. They always looked wrong. So one day, I see really cheap at a shop this building. And it's the right color. It's got the recessed second level. It's close enough, except, as you can see, it's not rounded. It's not the exact same type of building. But for now, until I can either find something better, if you look, they're not bad. I call it selling the idea. You look at the signs, the shop signs, you look at the angle, the colors, it's close enough that a person from Delmenhorst would say, yeah, I remember that building. It didn't quite look like that, but I remember it. it's close enough for now until I can maybe find a model or buy softer plastic or whatever and really mold it. But at my age, with my years between building dioramas and now, the problems I have with my fingers and stuff, to try to cut out every single window and design them in, that's not in my world right now. So I'm happy with this because it sells the idea. And it got the approval of friends in Delmenhorst. And if the people of Delmenhorst say, hey, you really got that, then who's to complain? So sometimes you sell the idea. You try to get as close as you can, but sometimes you just have to compromise and sell the idea. So that's kind of what we're talking about today. Is, again, I'm not going to show you how to customize. I'm just going to tell you it's something to think about. Scale, compression, those are all issues you got to be aware of when you are going to custom build and go for a reality-based layout as opposed to an idealistic-based layout. So, whatever you do, be happy with it. Enjoy it, because it's a hobby. It's supposed to be fun. If you're not happy with it, it's not a hobby for you. It becomes a job. So, I will put up a separate video that gives a real good slideshow kind of look at how I built the Delmenhorst station, especially when I get it completely in, because it is my pride and joy. I'm very pleased with where I'm at and have done it. And it was the key, because I could not build my town until I built my station and knew where I would build out from the town. So it's a big step for me to have finally got the station to a part where I'm ready to put it in. I'll talk to people. So hit subscribe, and we'll see you for episode 9. Goodbye.
I am that voice inside your head.